Hey everybody, it's Romania Black. So we're on episode 6 of Neon Genesis Evangelion, and the last episode left off on a bit of a cliffhanger with Shinji getting a laser fired through his middle. So, no big deal. But as I'm recording this, episode 5 has just come out on Patreon and episode 4 on YouTube. And so I do have some comments for this from all of y'all on Patreon, YouTube before we start episode 6. I'm pretty excited. I saw my brother the other day and he's like, how far are you? And I was like, oh, I'm on episode 5. He's like, what happens in that episode? And I was like, oh, well, Shinji just had a laser fired through his mech. And he was just like, And that's all he did. And that's all he did. He just went, And I was like, don't say anymore. So I'm anticipating that it's only the 6 episodes in, so surely our protagonist is not going to die. So they're going to save Shinji somehow. It's just, is Rei going to step in? What's going to happen? How are they going to get him out of this situation? This will be the 3rd time that Shinji's gone up against an angel. And the first time he got injured. The second time he managed to get out pretty much unscathed physically. Emotionally, he was a wreck. And then this time, it may be both. He gets both physically and emotionally injured. So we'll see. But I do have some comments. Concerning the episodes 4 and 5, Maya B pointed out that instead of just 3 seconds, it's actually one song on repeat. And I'm like, okay. And several of you were commenting about that. Maya B in coalition with AJIN, we're talking about like songs being repeated for comfort. And Shinji is a very troubled character. And so it could be that he just repeats this song over and over again as a means of comforting himself. And I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like, I have my own comfort songs that if I'm feeling bad, I'll play them sometimes to make myself feel better. I could totally get that. But AJIN also points out the idea that Shinji, he is pretty complacent in his failure, which is really sad. That he feels like he's obligated to fight. But the whole scene where it's that the whole line in the movie theater where it's like you are forced to witness this hell, it's not only that Shinji is forced to go along with things because he's complacent, but it's also being in this hell of isolation, that Shinji is by himself and he's stuck in this human loneliness. And so I feel like with the last episode, he's reached out and he's made friends with Toji and Ida, and he's trying to reach out to Rei. Rei's just a harder shell to crack. It goes back to that whole hedgehog's dilemma. Rei doesn't like people getting close to her. And so, there's that hedgehog idea that there's the spines that poke out like, no, stay away from me. It's pretty interesting. But on top of that as well, Bright Girl pointed out that the tracks that keep going back and forth could relate to Psalm 76, 3 through 5. And I was like, oh. And so with that, Bright Girl put down the Psalm. And I want to read it out loud to y'all because I was like, And the Psalm 76, 3 through 5 reads, "There he broke the flashing arrows, the shields and swords, the weapons of war. You are radiant with light, more majestic than mountains, rich with game. The valiant lie plundered, they sleep their last sleep. Not one of the warriors can lift his hands." I was like, oh, that's so good. That's great. The idea of the flashing arrows, the idea of just weapons of war with the Evas, and the idea of the valiant lying strewn and sleeping their last sleep and dying, the warriors not being able to fight, like this feeling of uselessness. I mean, you can, more radiant with light, more majestic than the mountains. I think of Shinji walking through the mountains in episode 4, which would tie to that track, like him walking through the mist and standing above it. Like there's so much you can derive from that, but really cool. Someone else also said that it could be referencing episodes 25 and 26, which are the final episodes of the season, like a foreshadowing to them. We shall see. I don't want to be spoiled. But I thought that was really, really cool. So I like the tie-in. It's just, we're getting more into Shinji's psyche, and I really am fascinated by him as a character. So I really like that. Anastasia noted that the children piloting the Evas possibly were conceived before or shortly thereafter the meteor strike. Coincidence? I think not. I think there's something there. We just, as the audience, don't know what it is yet. But I agree with you, Anastasia. I think something's there. Thanks for not spoiling me. Christopher Peterson talked about that there needed to be therapists for these pilots. Yeah. I also want to point out that this takes place in 2015. Mental health back then, people getting aware that, people have some mental health resources that need to become available. I definitely think that the idea, it's curious to me that in the 90s, we're focusing in this story about the issue of mental health, and that a lot, and it kind of points to the trope about, in a lot of these series, these characters just, go off to war or get involved in a battle, and then they're done. It's like, well, we defeated the bad guy. Everything's great. We're not psychologically traumatized. And in this, no, it really touches on the problems and the realistic issues of, a 14-year-old kid would be messed up from doing this sort of thing. And this series doesn't shy away from showing how seriously one can be affected by traumas such as this. And I think that's fascinating. Christopher Peterson also points out a very important question. Like, we've established that Shinji is kind of a minimalist. He's sort of a neat freak. He's cleaned up Misato's apartment. But Christopher Peterson noted, where did Shinji live before? What was that living condition like? And I was like, And I don't know. There's a part of me that thinks that Shinji's always been kind of neat and orderly. But then I thought back to obligatory Attack on Titan, where you talk about the character Levi, who that character grew up in kind of grimy circumstances and kind of like a less than pristine environment. And so their character is very obsessed with cleanliness. And I figured that maybe that could tie to Shinji's character, that maybe Shinji did grow up in kind of like a ransack environment. And so his cleanliness is tied to him. Some people, for cleaning and doing things like that, is a way for them to have control and a way for them to focus on something. And you can tie that to lots of things. You can tie it to eating disorders. You can tie it to like hyper, cleanliness. You can tie it to a lot of different things. But for some people, having that one aspect they can control is like the way they keep sanity in their lives. And for Shinji, that may very well be the case, that him maintaining some semblance of order is a way for him to have like meaning and, a justified purpose. So it's interesting. It's very interesting. And the idea that maybe Shinji is more adjusted than we thought. It's especially in comparison to characters like Gendo and Rei, who seem like Rei seems like in total disarray. Like, she's taking medication. Her apartment is a wreck. She doesn't seem to have any cognizant understanding that everything around her is like kind of spiraled out of control. She just does her thing and goes home and doesn't seem to care about anything else in the outside world. So her mental state is a lot more delicate, I feel, than Shinji's right now, who has found like a support network. He's found Misato and Toji and Ida to be there for support for him. And all that Rei really has is clinging on to this like idealized version of Gendo that she has that's like, okay, it's a little bit concerning. And then finally, Christopher Peterson noted that Balthazar and Melchior are biblical terms that will probably resurface later. Of course they are. Of course they are. The final comment I have is just referencing the idea about, one, Shinji possibly being lonely, lacking affection, and unable to communicate social frustrations and sexual frustrations as well. And I think that's very true of Shinji's character, that Shinji is lonely and wants affection. And that kind of ties to what, I'm going to mispronounce her name, so I'm just going to spell it out. It's VyckygY, noted on YouTube. The idea that in episode 4, that Shinji, when he was kind of mocking Misato, was actually really wanting reassurance that he was needed. And I was like, oh yeah, because way back in episodes 1 and 2, Shinji's whole deal was, he's like, oh, so I'm not wanted here either. Like, Shinji has had attachment issues, and he's had issues with feeling like he belongs and feeling like he's needed. And that kind of ties into him telling everybody he's the pilot, and everybody being like, oh my gosh, like, kind of feeds into that, right? And so when he kind of mockingly tells Misato, like, well, you all need me, Misato is intending to do good, and she thinks that she's doing the right thing by saying, no, get out of here. This is clearly not the place for you. So Misato thinks that she has good intentions and is doing the right thing by telling Shinji to leave. But in Shinji's mind, that's just furthering this sense of abandonment and this sense of isolation and not being needed and neglect and rejection that he's been feeling probably most of his life. So I thought that was really, really interesting that he took her words the wrong way, and it just spurned him to leave even more. And then eventually he decides to go back. So yeah. But the final thing that I just noted rewatching a couple of these episodes is that we established that Rei came here about 2 years ago to where Nerve is at, and Shinji last saw his father 3 years ago. So the timeline is a little interesting there, that Shinji saw his dad 3 years ago, They haven't seen each other since then, and it just so coincidentally happened that right after Shinji and his father parted ways, he came across Rei. So that's my comments I got so far for this, but I really appreciate y'all commenting on these episodes. Some really good insights. Please no spoilers, but so far everybody's been really awesome, so thank you. My brother's like, I won't spoil you, and I'm like, good. So yeah, I don't know what's going to happen this episode. It's probably going to get crazy because Shinji's in trouble, but this series has subverted every expectation I've had of it so far. So when I think something's going to happen, the opposite ends up occurring instead. So I'm just going to go in blind and like I always do and just hope that things work out for our boy Shinji. Surely it will, right? We're going to start episode 6 of Neon Genesis Evangelion here in 3, 2, 1, and let's jam. This series just continues to subvert my expectations of what I think is going to happen. This was just a solid battle episode, but it wasn't a battle episode in the sense that, oh, the fight's just going to happen. No, it is all of the setup and the prep and the planning and the strategy and showing that Misato is surprisingly competent in her role as being like the leader of this battle planning. Like Misato proving her worth. Like she is a hot mess. Like it's funny that a lot of these characters, when they're not in the midst of battle, they are hot mess expresses. They are the humanity side of them, like living, the act of living is more of a trial than battling these monsters. And I think that goes back to the last couple of episodes where Akagi was talking about how Ayanami, how Rei and Gendo, they're just not very adept at living. They're adept at surviving and survival and handling a crisis situation when it comes to like life or death. But when it comes to just stepping out of that war zone and just living as people, they're not adept to it. They don't know what to do. And Rei especially, she doesn't know what to do with her emotions. She's like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with all of this. Like, so it's interesting. Whereas Shinji is proving more and more like empathetic and showing more emotion too, which is really cool. I love like Shinji. It was so sweet, like him at the end being like, "No, don't think you're worthless" and things like that. Because man, again, I don't blame Shinji for not wanting to get back into that EVA unit at all, especially after everything he's gone through. But he still does it. But he still goes through with it because he has people now that he cares about that he wants to protect. And he wants to feel needed by them and wants them to depend upon him. And so, yeah, he ends up going through with it. But the parameters, it's almost laughable when Rei gives him the itinerary, just how quickly everything's coming together. And she's like, okay, you woke up. In an hour, we're going to go do this all over again. It's like, what? So, man, but this episode, just all the setup and how this episode uses sound, how it uses things to be quiet. And it's not all flash in your face action. It's the setup and getting it ready. And then it makes the payoff at the end of the episode when there is the actual battle all the more intriguing. Also, this angel thing. All kinds of sus going on. But we need to talk about that. But man. So I wanted to go back through this and try to get test type, Eva, get on there. Absolute terror field. Okay. That's odd. What? So absolute terror field. I don't want any spoilers, but that is interesting. Like it's a barrier. Like it's almost like a resistance. Okay. All right. Color me intrigued. But yeah. So let's get into this episode again. Oh my gosh. So yeah, the whole thing with the laser firing and oh my god, poor Shinji. And it's just, yeah, Shinji, God, just barely making it out alive from this entire ordeal. It's rough. And so Misato taking charge there, saying his brainwaves are erratic, that he managed to survive. But yeah, increase life support to maximum power. Give him a heart massage. Like, shock his heart. Like, this is a 14-year-old child that you are giving him a heart massage. That you're shocking him back to life to keep his pulse up. Like, Shinji's about to die. Okay. But his brain's great. So that's all that matters, right? It's amazing how these characters are just so calm under this. And Misato's like, nope, going to go over there. Also want to make note that it's Misato. Like, Gendo is nowhere to be seen in this episode, except he's referenced in Rei's thoughts at the end. But Gendo is nowhere to be seen in all this. They rush Shinji to go to, like, surgery or go to get checked up on, go sit in this iron lung, whatever it is, like, to just go get healed up. And this angel is burrowing to get to the center of nerve. I find it interesting that we have all of this, like, symbolism, right? Because you have that it's drilling to the center of nerve. Now, what it's going to do when it gets to the center, what is it going to do when it drills to the center? Is it going to, like, release an army of whatever? Is there going to be, like, an army of, like, creatures come out of it? Is it going to fire a bomb down there and make it blow up? Why is it drilling to the center? What is the point? Is it just, what's the purpose, right? That's the question. Like, what is the purpose of it? Because it seems like a fortress, like this triangular, this pyramid, this pyramid thing we draw here has the capabilities to fire a laser, at our crew, and it also has drill. I want to point out that the drill itself, that the eye of drilling, it's kind of reminiscent of the tubes going into the EVA unit. I'm trying to think of the way that they describe it. They have the, it reminds me of the tubes that go into the EVA. So the tubes that Shinji and them get in, they get embedded into the EVA unit. The drill reminds me of that. So it's like a weird comparison in a sense. Like, what is it trying to do? And the fact that it's drilling to the center of center of nerve, to the central nervous system, it just seems like it's a funny little quinky-dink there, that it's just a play on words. Decisive battle, new Tokyo-3. We did get a preview of old Tokyo for a second, which is interesting. But yeah, the poor EVA unit, it has... I like that there's a 1-to-1 scale balloon dummy to test it out. Like, what? This balloon dummy, like, what Macy's Day Parade did they ransack for this? So it has a particle beam. It's vaporized the dummy. Basically, anything that tries to attack it, it will fire at. And so they go through all these different weapons that they have lined out. Like, they have this self-propelled mortar. Just name this weapon coming out. It's a shame. It looked cool, but, and it just ricocheted off of the AT field and just blew up the thing. All right. I like that Misato's just like, all these taxpayer dollars that just went to all this weaponry. Yeah, let's just try it out. Like, fine. And I love her smirk where she's like, I see. Okay. And she's sitting there, like, twirling the pencil in her hand, like something like I would do. Like, I relate a lot to Misato. I'm not... her whole household mannerisms I don't relate to, but like some of her mannerisms, like, I get it. From the data we've collected, we're assuming that the target automatically attacks any opponent during a certain range. The likelihood of hitting anything in the area with its particle beam is 100%. Okay, so she's trying to think up, like, I like this idea of Misato as the strategist. I like it, that she's the military strategist. I like that a lot. I like that Misato's one to think up the plan. It's cool. It's funny, you have all these guys sitting around, like, in the headquarters. Like, what are they doing right now? Misato's like, I'm coming up with a game plan. It's interesting. But she is in charge of that, right? I like that at the beginning of this series, she just said she was like a civil servant. And here she's like planning out a way to save the entire city. It's like, okay, Misato, you don't give yourself enough credit, do you? And so I say that the AT field is active. It's strong enough that the spatial changes in phase are visible to the naked eye. Okay. So yeah, they can see the changes in it. Using half measures like guided missiles, artillery, or bombs is going to hurt. Yeah, so like if we fire a missile at it, it's going to do nothing. It's just going to hurt us more than anything. Offensively and defensively, it's almost perfect. A flying fortress. And so the drill they established is the target is directly above us. It's going to go into the null zone. And it's a drill with a diameter of 17.5 meters towards nerve HQ. Going through like 22 layers of armor. So they establish in this, she calls him a sassy bastard, but they establish that the Nerve headquarters has 22 layers of armor protecting it. Interesting. Okay. So it's not easy to get into, but it nearly reaches there. The drill nearly reaches there. So basically they've got till midnight before it reaches. 12:06 is when it's going to reach. And it's already like 9 o'clock. Oh my gosh. Okay. And go to the geofront in 10 hours. Yeah, but the question is why? Why is it drilling there? What is it planning to do? What's the point? What is the point? And so Misato, I like that Misato says, what's the condition of Unit 01? And so they talk about how the defensive armor was melted down to the 3rd layer, and the silver lining is the central control unit sustained no damage. So that the pilot can still get in there 3 more seconds and it would have been over. Lucky them. Yeah, but it's just like all melted. And so he said in 3 hours, the replacement parts should be installed. So the good thing is they're on the ball. Like they've got the equipment to fix it up really quickly. I mean, that's good. And so Misato was like, all right, what's the status of Unit 00? And they say the reactivation itself isn't a problem, but there's a feedback error. So actual combat is still impossible. So that's really why they made Shinji the sniper. So I want to put Shinji over here. Put Shinji, and I'm going to put Unit 01, and I'm going to put Rei and Unit 00. Okay, so we established in this that Unit 00 is not for combat. Not going to work. There's still a feedback error. We can't use it to fight. And this unit, it can fight. So that explains why they were like, you're just going to defend and hold the shield because you can't do any actual physical combat. We've got to leave that to the 01 unit. So yeah, really in all honesty, for this to work, they needed both Shinji and Rei to be pilots for this to be a tag team for this to be able to pull it off. And then Misato asks, what's the condition of the pilot? Right? I like that Misato and all of this is using very clinical terms, like no Shinji-kun when we're off the field and talking strategy. And they say there's no physical damage. But his nerve pulses are up by 0.8. And I like that Rei's sitting there still within acceptable limits. Okay. So Shinji has had no physical damage. Putting physical in quotation marks. And we're going to put Rei here, has in the past sustained physical damage from when she was ejected from the EVA. But Shinji's whole deal is very psychological. He is emotionally affected by this whole ordeal, clearly. And Rei, I love that she's holding the glasses in her hand, like the symbol from Gendo. She's holding the glasses in her hand. And I would say that Rei is just like emotionally detached. She's just like, whereas Shinji is feeling many things emotionally, Rei has just detached herself. And the only thing that is really anchoring her to this world right now and keeping her sane is Gendo's glasses and the concept of Gendo as someone that she can, feel comforted by and feel safe around. All right. And I love that shot of the glasses with the crack. And there is like the screens and everything. And she's watching Shinji. She's looking at Shinji. Oh, okay. I was like, what is she looking at? But she was sitting there by his side. Okay. So she was sitting with Shinji while he recovered. Okay. Okay, that's interesting. So yeah, so she did sit beside him while he was in there. Okay, and I love that shot of the glasses with the crack, like through that lens, seeing, but Gendo's not there. I'm gonna make a note that Gendo is barely present in this episode. Barely. Just to give Misato the okay, the go ahead, and just to acknowledge what they're doing. But he really isn't in this episode a lot. But God, I love that. And I love that it's through his father's glasses that we see Shinji like in the pod recovering. But the fact that Rei was there. that she sat with him. Okay. All right. And I like Misato's like, the situation isn't favorable. And the one guy's like, should we just wave the white flag? And she's like, well, before we do that, there's something I want to try. So I like that Misato has a lot of resilience. Misato doesn't like to lose. She seems like somebody that doesn't like to lose. Like she goes all in, right? She gives me very, again, Attack on Titan. She kind of gives me like Erwin vibes a little bit. Where Misato's like, no, let's try this. What about this? We thought about this? Like, she's really serious, but kind of like gung-ho about it. I like it. I like it a lot. And so she goes in front of Gendo and Fuyu-chan and says, we want a sniper to shoot the target from outside its firing zone. And God, this shot, the sci-fi, the imagery in this shot where it's them, it's the desk that Gendo and Fuyu are at, casting these big shadows. Like these big shadows across the room. And then you have Misato like standing her distance away. I like it. Nerve Commander's office. Instead of trying to neutralize the target's AT field, which has proven not to work, I believe a pinpoint shot with a high energy beam is the only way. What does the Magi say? The responses from the Magi supercomputers were 2 affirmative and 1 conditional affirmative. So basically, this whole thing has an 8.7% chance of success. And she's like, that's great. So the fact of all this having an 8.7 success rate and that being good is terrifying. Is utterly terrifying, right? It's a quite high percentage. And so then, of course, Gendo's like, well, I have no reason to raise an objection. Go ahead and proceed. Because really, I mean, firing the cannon being, I mean, what other options do they have? The close range combat is not going to work. And Gendo doesn't want to see Rei getting hurt. And I would like to think he doesn't want to see Shinji get hurt. But yeah, he's just barely in this episode, Gendo is. Him and Fuyu. And she's like, all right, let me do this. And I love this transition. I love that transitions from Misato in front of them, and when we pull back, she's with Akagi on the escalator. This series, it's so cinematic, and I love it. Yes. But she's like, this is a very reckless plan, operations director Katsuragi. Again, these 2 girlfriends. She's like, don't be rude, it's not reckless. Nah. It can be executed within the 9 hours we have left. Again, I love that this series, it takes its time to set up just how long these conditions are going to take to be met. It's not like just okay, we got the cannons, got the guns ready, did that in 30 minutes, let's go. No, we established that there's a time that it takes to do all of this, and that the clock is ticking. This angel is drilling to the center of nerve, and while that's going on, they're trying to scramble to get things put together. It's realistic, and I like it. I also noticed that this escalator, one going up and one going down, is constantly featured in this series so far. It's like the one mode of transportation within Nerve that we see, like things going up and things going down on the singular escalators. It's a stylistic thing, and I like it. And so we have the EVA Positron Rifle, Prototype 20 with toroidal accelerator. Our Positron Rifle can't handle such a high output. What are we going to do about that? Well, we'll borrow one, of course. And then she's like, borrow? She's like, how are we going to borrow enough energy? And she's like, we'll go to the lab's prototype, the strategic SDF. Like, girl has thought of everything. Like, Misato's like, I know exactly what we have to do. If we can't use this positron rifle, then we'll go find a bigger one from, like, the research department. And I got my requisition order right here. Like, girl came prepared. I like that we establish that she is on top of military planning. Again, a lot of these characters, when they are in these high-risk survival situations, they know what to do, they get the job done, but when they go back to living in a world that's not in constant state of like panic, stress, anxiety all the time, they don't know how to function. Like Misato, her world crashes down when she's not in these high-risk situations like this. Rei, when she's not doing these orders and fulfilling her mission to Nerve, her life is in shambles. Like, it's such a telling moment in this that these characters are doing so well under pressure, but then when they get back to their real world lives, they just don't know how to function. It's interesting. So the self-propelled positron cannon is what they're taking away from the SDF department at 1500. And I like the one guy, the Tsukuba Technology Laboratory Headquarters. They're like, this is ridiculous. You're taking our weapon. Like, no. Like, we'll try to return it as close to the original condition as we can. I like that she's like, no promises. We're going to try to return it like we borrowed it. But, you know, it's a monster we're fighting. Don't know if that's going to work out or not. But yeah, just, we appreciate your cooperation. You have no choice, but we appreciate the cooperation. Like, what? And they're like, Ray, take it away. And I love that Ray shows up in the EVA unit. That's a piece of precision machinery, so be careful. Okay. And so our calculations show that it will take at least 180 million kilowatts to penetrate the AT field. How are you going to get that much electricity? So yeah, in order to penetrate the force field around it, we've got to have so much energy to do that. And so Misato gets the awesome idea of, well, we'll just borrow it from all of Japan. Girl thinks. She knows how to think on her feet. Like, what the heck? And so then they talk about the power outage. So yeah. And at this point, okay, I have to say, the product placement in this scene with Toji and Ida at the Suzuhara residence. Okay. Suzuhara, wasn't that the lab? Let me go back. Wasn't that the lab that she was just in? Wasn't that the lab that we were just in? Let me go back here. Okay. Let me see. At 1500 a day. Oh, Tsukuba. Never mind. Not that. Never mind. All right. So then, yeah, we have Toji and Ida playing on their video games during all of this insanity. And I love the product placement. Like, if you pause it right there, you'll see that they're playing on, like, the PlayStation. Is that a PlayStation? I want to go back and see what exactly. No, it's like a Sega. They're, like, playing a Sega or a Dreamcast. Like, one of the two. It almost looks like a Dreamcast. But they're playing on that. And then there's, like, the McDonald's product placement, but it's only one arch instead of two. Clever. Very clever. And then we see the Horaki residence. Horaki residence. So the Horaki residence. Okay, so we get Horaki is the girl rep, the class rep with the pigtails. That's her. And then we had Ida's home, right? Or no, it was actually Toji's. New Tokyo-2. So we get Tokyo-2, which seems more like of a civilian residence. Okay. And then new Makurazaki Kagoshima Prefecture. All right, where they're flying overhead. And then we have, at dawn today, a large-scale power outage across the nation. We have Hokkaido, Betsukai. We have all that established with the train. And then we have Ube, Yamaguchi Prefecture. Okay, and it's underwater, nearly. And then Mitaka Ward, Old Tokyo. And it's, like, leveled with the sunset. It's crazy. Like, that's so, like, going from, like, old Tokyo and everything's just kind of quiet and desolate to the new Tokyo that's like the fortress city. I love that. I love just the establishing shots in the series. They're so good. But yeah, we go back to New Tokyo-3 where the drill has broken through the 7th defensive layer. Like, okay, what's the status of the energy system? And they're 3.2% behind, but they should be finished by 11:10. Okay, by like close to midnight. And they're like, the technology department in Division 3 Nerve headquarters in charge of electromagnetic and light wave hardware. On the honor of Tech Department 3, we'll have it built for you in 3 hours. Like, I love that we're going through this episode and seeing like each department and each part of Nerve and how they're all like working together. It reminds me of like a body. Like, you talked about this drilling into nerve, kind of like drilling into the central nervous system of a body, sort of like how the pods go into the EVA units. But this all feels like, it seems akin to like a foreign object has invaded the body. Like, this drill is a foreign object that's invaded. And the body is like all the white blood cells and everything's coming together like to form some like resistance and to drive it out. It's like the body is all, we're seeing how the body of Nerve all works together and functions to take care of itself. And it's really kind of cool. I like it a lot. But yeah, What about our defensive measures? Using a shield is about all we can do. The EVA anti-heat and light wave defensive equipment. Makeshift specs. Like this is the shield. It's very bare bones. It's a hand-me-down from a single stage to orbit rocket. Okay, so it's like the door or the wing off of a rocket ship. Okay. It may look ugly, but it's got super electromagnetic base coating. Okay, that is going to be resistant. It guarantees it will stand up to the enemy's particle beam for at least 17 seconds. Oh my god. Ugh. This little rinky-dink shield. Sure. Have you determined the sniper position? They're like, yeah, we figured it out. Given the range of the target, geographical features, taking power access into consideration. And I like that they map it out. It's very Star Wars where you see the map and everything. Very much looks like that. And Misato's like, okay, that looks good. Great. It'll be atop Mount Futago at midnight. And we're going to call it Operation Yashima. All right. The only remaining problem is the pilot. And as we say that, his life status barely is above the safety line where he's regained consciousness. Awesome. The bare minimum has been met. And we can bring Shinji back. So yeah, the designated pilot is conscious now. His examination results look normal. And it's the craziest thing. And the thing about it is that I get it on both fronts, right? I get it on the front of Shinji being like, wait a minute, what am I about to do all over again? You get Shinji's, like, his trepidation is valid. I mean, it's valid he has these feelings. I'm like, yeah, he just went through nearly dying and you're just going to throw him right back into it. But then you see that, and on the other side, you see in this episode all of the planning that has gone into this moment. Like, Shinji, he has wanted to belong, right? He has wanted to belong to something and to be wanted. And so the thing of it is, as crazy as this situation is, as insane as it is, this episode showing just how much preparation and planning goes into all of this. It's showing that, okay, Shinji, you want to be wanted. You want to feel a sense of belonging and a sense of being needed. Okay, they need you, and you are part of something bigger. It's not just you and the EVA unit. It's you are part of NERV and part of all these other departments that are working to help get the job done as well. So I like that it's showing in this series that it's not just the pilot and the EVA unit that's the saviors. It's everybody working together to make this all come together and work, which is really good, because a lot of series would just be like, okay, here's your mech, here's you and the pilot, go get them, you got this. And we've just sat here waiting for you to do the thing. But here, they show you just the process of getting ready and just what all goes into it and how it's not just a single person thing. It's all of these units cohesively working together. It's really, really interesting. And then so Misato's like, and then Akagi's just like, well, I wonder if he's going to pilot again, you know, since you kind of told him to not pilot again. I like that Akagi's like, gee, you kind of made it to where he should run away. Misato, are you sure you want him to get back in the pilot seat? And Misato's like, get ready. She just ignores her. She's like, get ready for a decisive battle. She just ignores Akagi, and Akagi's sitting there with the paper like, you know, you kind of told him to run away. So I like that Misato's like, no. So Surgical Ward 3, Central Hospital. Okay. And so then Ayanami, Ray comes in with his breakfast, with his food. Not really breakfast anymore. And I like that Shinji waking up. It's so beautiful and ethereal. Like the hospital shots in this are very like softly shot and lightly lit. It's really pretty. But he sees her, and her bedside manner, she's just looking down at him like, get up. Like she's just looking at him, you know. And he's like, oh, Ayanami. And she's like, I'm here to brief you on the timetable of Operation Yashima, which will begin tomorrow at 0000 hours. And I like that she just goes right into it. She doesn't say like, hi, how are you? Glad you're still alive. What's going on? No, she just coldly and clinically, debriefs him about the mission. She's very much just like the brain mode in this. Whereas Shinji is kind of like, Shinji is the heart, right? So I like that. Yeah, she doesn't even greet him. She doesn't say hi. He just says her name. She's like, okay, good, you're awake. And so Shinji has no clue what Operation Yashima is. Has no clue. And she's like, pilots Ikari and Ayanami will arrive at the cage at 17:30 today. She's like, at 1800, units 01 and 00 will activate. Launches at 1805. So within 30 minutes, they're going to arrive on base. They're going to leave here, go to the base, and within 5 minutes launch. Like, there's like no time. It's just like, let's go, let's do it. Okay. They will arrive at the temporary base at Mount Futago at 18:30 and will stand by and await further orders. The operation will begin at midnight. So, like, what? Like, just, it's crazy talk, y'all. It's crazy talk. I love that she's like, and she just pulls out her notebook, like, gets done. She's like, okay, well, that's that. I told you the plan. And here's a new one. She just hands him the suit, the nerve suit. Like, just put this on, get ready to go. Like, he's naked and bandaged. And he just looks at it like, what? And when he sits up, and she's like, she doesn't tell him to, like, get dressed or say don't look half naked. She's like, don't show up half asleep looking like that. And he's like, I just woke up from nearly dying. I can't blame Shinji for being like, what? Are you serious? And he just looks at her like, and he is like nearly nude. And he's like, oh crap. And so he like scrambles to like cover himself. And he says sorry. And she's like, I don't understand. Like, here's the thing. A lot of people were commenting in the last episode about Ayanami, like, not having a reaction to Shinji, like, groping her or being on top of her, like, not having a reaction to anything sexual that was going on in that episode. And here it's the same thing. Like, he's, like, nude and, like, gets modest and is like, oh, let me cover myself up. She doesn't seem to notice or care. So she does not react to anything of a sexual nature. Anything that would have any type of sexual connection, she's like, it just, not there. And Shinji seems more, like, reactive about it. And I love he's like, all I've been doing since yesterday is apologizing. And she's like, your meal. And it looks like it's milk, it's a bread roll, it is an egg, it is a thing of rice, and it is whatever the hell those three things are, like the sauces or whatnot. And he just looks at it like, yeah. He's like, I don't want to eat anything. And she's like, we'll be departing in 60 minutes. I think she's like, you probably should eat something because we're going to leave in an hour. In an hour. Like, he wakes up from nearly dying. She debriefs him. He's like, so in an hour, we're going to go back out into the field and do this all over again. It's wild. And he's like, do I have to pilot that thing again? And her response, she says, yes, you do. And he's like, I don't want to. And he's like, maybe you can be so cool about it because you haven't had the kind of experiences I've had yet. Oh, that part I was like, oh. So Shinji is suggesting that he has gone through more than Rei. Which technically may be true because her injuries and everything were sustained from the ejection. But he's assuming that he's like, I've been through some things and you don't know what that's like. I'm like, oh, buddy. I mean, I don't know. Rei seems like she's been through some stuff too. But he says, I don't want to go through that again. And she says, then don't. Which is such a contradiction because she just said, he's like, do I have to pilot that thing again? She said, yes. But then when he's like, I can't do it, she's like, well, then don't. So the thing is that, yes, they need him. They need him, but he is not their last resort. He is just their best resort. She's like, if you won't do it, then I'll do it, but we'll all die. So again, it's that idea that, no, it's fine. I'll pilot the O1. And then Shinji's like, well, wait a minute. And she's like, Dr. Akagi's already prepared to rewrite the personal data files. Like, I can do it. And he's like, Miss Risco. He's like, I'm leaving. Captain Katsuragi and Dr. Akagi will be waiting at the cage. She's like, bye. And he's like, wait a minute. And she says, sayonara. And are saying goodbye and leaves Shinji with the food. Mm-hmm. And I love that he just sits there and just thinks about it and contemplates. Like, I love that. And this is called Ray 2. Okay. Yeah, so that's the thing. Like, Shinji, he is left with a choice, right? And Ray is like, no, you don't have to do this. But people have made all these preparations. They're waiting on us. They're relying on us. It is the best case scenario if you help us go through with this. But you don't have to. We'll find a way. Probably won't be successful, but we'll do what we can. Like, I like that Ray doesn't force him or tell him. She doesn't force him, and she doesn't gaslight him. You know, she's very blunt. I mean, she doesn't gaslight him. She's very blunt. She just says what's going to happen. And I like that Ray doesn't try to persuade him or anything. That's not in her character at all. She just says the facts and moves on. It's like, and that bluntness is going to come back to really touch Shinji later on in this when she says she's going to protect him. But yeah, it's like, okay. So we go to the middle school principal where it says there's no school today. And so all these guys are hanging out saying they ought to go and evacuate to the shelter. And that's when Ida says, I hacked into my dad's data files. So Ida's dad works with Nerve, and he's hacked in the data files. And so I feel bad for Ida because this kind of establishes that he really looks up to his dad, but his dad's not home enough. So he's like, he has to hack into them, right? And he knows what his dad does. It's interesting. Mm-hmm. But they're all sitting there waiting for the EVA units to come out. And then they do. And it's kind of almost wholesome in the weirdest ways, where he's like, the mountain's moving. And I like that Ida's like, it's the Evangelions. Like, I love that there's almost this reverence these kids have. Like, they're the heroes, right? And he's like, there they are. Oh my gosh. And they're so like, and there's the two of them. I love that they're like, it's so cool. Oh, I love that Toji and all them, they say how cool it is. But yeah, so again, this series is amazing because it's show, not tell. The last time we saw Shinji was in the hospital bed with his food. No dialogue, no inner monologue. You can just see by his gestures that he's contemplative. And then the next time we see him is him coming out in the EVA. Like he made up his mind to go. It's like, okay, they didn't have to tell us. We saw the shot and we got it. And I love that it shows Shinji then being like, how cool. Go for it. We're counting on you, Evangelion. Good luck. Like, that's the more stereotypical, like, them going off to save the world. And they've got the shield and everything. Nice. But yeah, this pyramid, what the hell? And it's penetrated through the 17th layer of armor. And it'll reach headquarters in 3 hours. No problem with the hub. So again, showing how long it's taking to sink. This isn't just a fly-by-night, let's just do it in 2 seconds. Like, no, this took time and effort and all the power in Tokyo and Japan to make work. It's brilliant. I love it. As far as like sci-fi goes, like this sort of stuff is fascinating. And seeing like all the tests that they're running, like how to organize everything. They say over and over again, this is a piece of precision machinery. Be careful with it. But yeah, the EVA Positron Sniper Rifle. Nerf specs formerly strategic SDF Labs automated positron rifle. This thing wasn't built for field operations. Will it really work? And they're like, welp, it's no choice. This is a makeshift solution. So it'll be okay. Theoretically, yes. We won't know if the cannon barrel and accelerator will hold until we try firing it. I like that it's like we really haven't had time to consider any other options. We're just going with this. And so we have there's 5 figures standing there. There's obviously Akagi and Misato and Rei and Shinji. But who's the 5th? Okay. I love that shot of Misato with Shinji and Rei behind her and like the light like going over them. I love that. Here's your individual duties for the operation. Shinji, you're the sniper. You're the gunner. And he's like, yes. Rei, you're in charge of defense. And she said yes. And so Akagi says this is because Shinji has a higher sync ratio with the O1 unit. Yeah, so he's more likely that his unit is not going to go ballistic during all this. He can control it better. Okay. The operation will require exceptional precision. All right. Since it's Earth influenced by the Earth's gravity, magnetic fields, and rotation, it will not fire in a straight line. That whole thing where they met in the middle and the two lines fired off each other, that was wild. But yeah, I love this idea that it's not going to be straight. It's going to curve with the Earth. So, oh my God. It's crazy talk, right? You must remember to make adjustments for these deviations. Just make adjustments. You're 14. It's fine. And I love that this series does not shy away from Shinji being she's like, you must penetrate the core precisely. And Shinji's like, I've never practiced this. I love that it's just, Shinji is like, I have never practiced any of this. So you're entrusting the fate of the world, the fate of our world here in Japan, on me with a device I've never touched. Okay. And I love the reasoning too. That they're like, don't worry. They're like, just do what the manual says. This device isn't meant for what the manual says, but the indicators, coverage in the center, you just pull the trigger. When it all lines up, the scope, you just pull the trigger, the computers will handle the rest. Once you fire it, it will take time before you can fire again for cooling, reloading, and replacement of the fuses. And then Shinji, very reasonably and realistically, Shinji has this paranoia, not paranoia maybe, but this doubt of what if I miss? What if the enemy shoots back? What happens if I fail, right? And I like that Akagi says, don't think about unnecessary things right now. Just think about destroying it in one shot. Akagi's like, you can't focus on the negative. You can't focus on the what ifs. You've just got to do what you're supposed to do the best you can and hope for the best. Akagi's like, you can't think like that. And Shinji's like, they're like, it's crisis time. And then Rei is like, I just need to defend the O1 unit, correct? So yeah, Shinji's having this freak out moment, being like, with this gun, he's never fired before, all the things that could go wrong. He's sitting there and Rei's like, so all I gotta do is defend him, right? Is that my only purpose? Is that what I'm here for? And then they're like, that's right. And she goes, okay. Both of you, it's time to go get charged. We don't know who the fifth person is. We don't see who the fifth person is. I don't know if it's the brown-haired girl that's the messenger, or I doubt it's Gendo, but it's interesting. Okay, so the getting dressed scene between the two of them when they get dressed, if you notice, Shinji's clothes are in a nice, neat formation. They're all piled up nice, neatly, and folded, right? And then, of course, through the screen, her clothes are just in a disarray. Just disheveled, just whatever. And there's just this separation between them. And it is a little bit sexualized, which is uncomfortable because she's 14. What can we do? But this conversation with Shinji where he's like, we might die doing this. I love this conversation. This is so good. From here on this episode, he's like, we could die doing this. And she's like, why do you say that? And then I love that she responds. She's like, you won't die. Because he doesn't have an answer. She's like, why do you say that we're going to die? And in Shinji's head, he's thinking of everything that could go wrong. He has all this doubt. Everything is just swirling around him. He's like, lots of things could go wrong. And she's like, you won't die. Because I'll protect you. I love that. She's like, you just need to do your job. You're not going to die. Because I'm going to do my job and protect you. I'm like, all right, girl. Okay. And then we have Pin looking over. And I love, again, the symbolism of the show. We go the stoplight going from red light to green light. And then we see, well, it doesn't even go to green light. It just all shuts off. And the power shuts off around it. The atmosphere of this show is so freaking cool. I love Pimpin just sitting up there looking at the stars in silence, like he's waiting for Misato to come back, you know. And then everything, the lights, everything goes out. I love the shot of just Japan slowly dimming to where there's no light, and you can see across the ocean the lights with the other country too, but they're not as prevalent. But God, that's so freaking cool. Yeah. And the stars and everything, and then we go down to them about to launch. It's so eerie. It's so eerie. And again, this shot of them up on the hangars about to get in their EVA units. God, I love this. I love this conversation. Because Shinji, you know, is mulling it over. And I love the shot of him with the EVA behind him. He's like, why do you pilot this thing? Like, because Shinji's trying to figure out for himself. He's like, why am I doing this? Obviously, it's to save everybody. But Shinji, like, has this resolve where he's like, okay, I'm going to do this to save everybody. Fine. But he's asking her, he's like, why do you do it? Almost like he's trying to, like, validate for himself. He's like, he wants to know why she does it, so maybe it will help give him more purpose and understanding of why he's doing it too. And she says, her answer is just because I'm bound. And he's like, bound? And she says, it's a bond. Her and the EVA unit. And he asks a bond, he's like, with my father? So the question is the bond... Rei says that she is bound and that it's a bond. Now, the question is, what is that to? Is it a binding to the EVA unit? Shinji asks if it's with his father, and she says it's with all people. So it's a bond with everyone. That she's doing this to help save and protect everyone. That's why she's doing it. It's a contract she has with the people of Japan that she'll protect them. And I like that Shinji says, you're very strong, Ayanami. And she's like, because I have nothing else. And he's like, what do you mean you have nothing else? And that's when she gets up and says, let's go. I love that. She says goodbye. So she says... the idea that she does this because she has nothing else. And Shinji he looks so heartbroken by it. It's like, wait, what? No. Because I think that Shinji relates a lot to Rei. And that he's like, what do you mean you don't have anybody else? Like, in that line, there's something so isolating and lonely in that she's bound to save the world with this bond with this EVA unit, but she has nothing that's really tying her to this world other than this contract, right? Other than this duty. And basically she's saying that other than my duty to protect the people of this country, she's like, I don't have any other reason to live. So this is I have nothing else. This is really the only thing keeping me going. And that makes so much more sense because, like, it explains, like, the disarray in her home life. Like, she just doesn't care because she's like, nobody lives here. It doesn't matter. They're not going to judge me for my place being in disarray like this. So it makes sense with that. Why she doesn't really care about anybody at school. She just doesn't feel like she feels so lonely and isolated that she just doesn't see the point. And in this moment, Shinji kind of realizes that they're similar. That she's like, well, I'm needed. I'm bound by this contract and I have a responsibility. But other than that responsibility, I don't have anything I'm living for. And in that moment, Shinji's like, well, that's not true. And it's kind of like a reflection of himself. He's like, well, I kind of thought that as well, but that's not true at all. And so I just love the expression he gives her. He's so heartbroken for her. It's like, oh my God. And so there's the drill. It's getting there. It's so weird, this pyramid. It's like translucent. It's odd. And so it's midnight and there's the countdown. Oh my God. And now commencing the operation. Shinji, we're entrusting you with all the electricity of Japan. Don't let us down. No big deal. Good luck. And he's like, yes, ma'am. And then, so they get everything connected. Numbers 1 through 803. All right. There's lots of numbers 3 in this series, I've noticed. The number 3 comes out a lot, right? This is technically the third angel. Even though they say the 5th angel, it's like the third one that's appeared. Transmission system activated. They just go through all the motions, getting everything, the voltage rising, getting ready for the laser, for the particle beam. I just love it. It's so sci-fi and cool. And everything goes off. And so then, yeah, it's armed and loaded. And then the error correction for Earth rotation and gravity is plus like 0.0009%. Okay. And again, it's just like Star Wars where the beam lines up, right? Okay. Voltage is 0.2% short of critical. Okay. Oh my God, it's all lined up to do this. And like the steam and stuff coming off the wires, like 7th connection engaged, and it's all on the EVA unit. Oh my God. And again, no pressure, Shinji, right? Right? And he's just gritting his teeth like, ugh. And then just as it's about to engage, the target... It's funny, like, it's weird. It's very weird. Like, the angel almost detected the exact moment that Shinji... It's weird, because the EVA unit... The angel almost detected the moment that it was about to fire, like as a self-defense mechanism. So that's weird. I'm like, why didn't the angel fire beforehand? But it almost did. It almost waited till right when Shinji's unit was about to fire the positron rifle. And then, yeah, it lines up. He fires, and that's when the laser from it fires. I love the purple and green, and they connect, and like the wave and energy makes it all like just whirl around. Oh my God, it's great. It's so freaking cool. And yeah, Shinji's like, well, shit. And it like breaks the glass, breaks windows, like stuff is, it's all kinds of messed up. And they're like, we missed. And the drill keeps going. And the drill making its way. Yeah, and they're like, the enemy drill is broken into the geofront. And so they're getting ready to fire too. And I like just like replace the fuses and has it going. And there's a note on the gun. It says GSSDF. I don't know what GSSDF stands for, but it's a acronym that's on the barrel there. I guess maybe that's the SDF, the research department part of it. And then yeah, it's about to fire another laser. And Shinji's like, shit! I love this Shinji, that reaction. He's like, crap! But the shield, that's when Ayanami steps in the way. And Gendo just sitting there watching as Rei protects him. And again, it said they had 17 seconds, and it takes 10 seconds for it to recharge. And he's like, Ayanami, and yeah, it's about to melt. And I like that Akagi's like, the shield isn't gonna last. Like, Akagi, I've noticed, is really concerned for Rei, too. God, and the 10 seconds left. And he's like, hurry up. I like that Shinji's like, hurry up so I can save her. Oh my God. And he's like, hurry up. Oh, I love it. And he fires it and it hits the angel. And then Misato's like, we did it. But I love that it shows Shinji going from this place of apathy, like in early on in episodes 1 and 2. And now that he's connecting to Rei, and he wants to prove to her that she doesn't have anything. So that's the thing too. Ever since she said, I have nothing else, you know that Shinji's like, no, you have friends. You have people that care about you. I care about you. So don't say that. And so in this moment when she's protecting him, he's like, I've got to save her so that she knows. It's good. And yeah, and I love that he just hurries up, and then yeah, the drill stops. And it was like, through nearly to the base. Oh my God. Wow, freaky. How freaky. So I'm curious now what's inside of it. I want to know what's inside the angel with the drill. But yeah, I like that Shinji like takes the part off of the EVA unit, pops out the tube, and like it just ejects all of the liquid. And then I love the idea that it shows his EVA unit like holding the tube, and he runs over there. And just like with Gendo, he hurries up to try. He's got gloves on, so it doesn't burn his hands, but he opens up the door. Just like Gendo did back in episode 4. Oh my gosh, Ayanami. And then, yeah, she's okay. And I thought when she looked up at him and her vision was blurry, I thought she was going to see Gendo at first. She does see him, but not immediately. And I love that he's in there with her. And he just hops in. And he's about to cry. I love that. He's like, don't say you have nothing else. I love that. She's so pale. Don't say goodbye when you leave on a mission. It's too sad. Shinji, like, him being so emotional in this moment. He's like, don't you dare say goodbye. Because he's like, don't make it like that. No, it's too sad. Like, don't say you don't have anybody and say goodbye. He's like, you do have somebody. Like, I'll be there for you. Like, my heart. And Shinji just being really emotional. And so, yeah, establishing, it's crazy, right? Shinji is a very emotional character. It's funny because the first several episodes, he seems so quiet and detached and indifferent. But the more we get with Shinji and the more he's around other people and interacts with other people, you find out, no, when he's isolated and by himself, he's very detached and quiet and introverted. But the moment he gets around others, he does adopt this emotional quality to him and he cares a great deal. It's like, oh, okay. It's so good. And he doesn't want to see her project the same types of emotions that he has. Man. And he's just sitting there crying. And like, I like that when they have him crying and animated, his like shoulders shake, like when he's sobbing. And Ray's like, why are you crying? Like, I don't understand. And he can't answer because he's just too sad. And I like that Ray says, I'm sorry. I don't know what to do in a time like this. Like, Ray's like, I don't emotionally. Ray is just kind of like emotionally detached. But she doesn't know how to handle social situations like this. She's like, I don't know what to do with you crying. I don't know how to handle it. And I love that Shinji looks up in that moment at her and he's like, you can just smile. Like, just, and him like smiling at her with the tears in his eyes. It's like, you can smile. And then we get the brief flash of Gendo. We get the brief flash of Gendo where he sees him smiling at her. And Gendo and Shinji do look a lot alike, but that motivates her. And she smiles. And seems like, and it seems like a genuine smile, but it's like the inspiration isn't just Shinji's words, it's also the image of Gendo as well. But that smile, whoo, man, it's so interesting. And then, yeah, we just pan away from the EVA unit. So, yeah, how about that? A self-contained episode. Would you look at that? Interesting. I'm glad this all resolved itself in an episode, but I really like this episode a lot. I like Shinji being emotional and being there for Rei. And the last couple episodes, Shinji has been very timid in his approach, but he's wanted to connect to Rei and to like be there for her and to like show her that no, you are wanted, because I think he sees a lot of himself in her. And just like how he wants to be wanted, he wants her to feel that sense of belonging too, and that there is a purpose and a reason that she's there. Not just to protect the people of Japan, but because there's people close to her that she can connect to. And so I like this. I like the idea that maybe now Shinji and Rei can become friends. It's like, okay, cool, good. Or at least maybe Rei, if she has to think of Shinji through a Gendo lens, if that makes it to where they can be friends, sure. God, this episode was good, though. I just love how introspective it was and just getting down to the emotions of these two characters and why they're doing this. Because I think it's been one of Shinji's holdup is that he's like, why am I doing this? And for Rei, it's this obligation to the world. And Shinji's like, I don't really feel that. But I feel like his connection with Rei is kind of what's tethering him to this as well. Almost like he's bound to her like she's bound to the world. God, this was a great episode. So yeah, I'm very curious now that we've got this angel, like what's inside of it? What's in the pyramid? What's in the box? Like what's up with the drill? Why does it have a drill? What is the point? Why was it trying to get to Nerve? What was it going to do if it did? What's inside of this pyramid? They said it was like a fortress. So what's in it? Like what's going on? I hope that next episode we get something with that. That would be really cool. But I don't know. But yeah, the EVA units, at least even though they're warped and melted, at least our pilots are okay. So that's good. So I'm curious to see if they'll become friends after this episode. If this is the start of their friendship. We're technically, if you can think of it, we are a fourth almost of the way through the series. Almost a fourth at this point. Next episode will be like nearly a fourth of the way through, which is crazy, right? So we're nearly a fourth of the way through the episode, through the series. Exciting, but I'm curious to know your thoughts down below, what you all thought of this episode. This one was really good. So I liked it. I hope y'all did too. I hope y'all enjoyed the reaction. But yeah, in the meantime, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back next week with episode 7 of Neon Genesis Evangelion.